Hello guys, welcome to Describely. In this video tutorial, I am going to walk you through how we can integrate Celery in our FastAPI application and use SQS to store the messages in the queue. Okay, so let's get started. So here you can see I have created an empty project that has only one file, that is requirements.txt, and here I have added the basic requirements that we need in this project. One is the fast API. So fast API is the core of our application that we are going to use, and then I have added the UVI icon. UVI icon is used to run the fast API application, and then the Celery with the SQS dependency. That means that we are going to use SQS as I have said previously, and this Boto3. So Boto3 is required to communicate with the AWS services through our application. Okay, so let's get started. So to install these dependencies, I'm going to create a virtual environment here. So to create a virtual environment, we can say Python 3 hyphen m venv and venv. Okay. So you can see now venv folder is there. That means we have created successfully our virtual environment, and I'm going to activate it. Source venv bin activate. So now this is active. As you can see the venv, the name of the virtual environment here just before this line. Okay. So let's install our dependencies. So to install this, we can say pip install -r requirements.txt. Okay. Something no matching distribution found for the Boto 3. Seems like I have typed something wrong. So let me check the latest version of Boto 3. Boto 3 pi here. You can see 1.2.1.28. Okay, I have not correctly typed it. Okay, that's right. Okay, so let's install it again. Okay, so it worked correctly, perfectly. Nice. Okay, so now we have installed the dependencies as well. Now let's create our first API, first Python file that will contain our fast API application instance. So let's name it main.py. Okay, here I'm going to import the fast API class. So from fast API import fast API. Okay, and I'm going to create a application instance by saying app equals to fast API class. Okay, so now we have created our app instance. So I'm just going to create a basic root route. So for that, let's say app dot get, and I'm just going to say slash only, and here I will say def, and I'm just going to name it root. Okay, as you can see, my code editor is already suggesting me, so that's good. So now we have created our basic route. So let's check if the application is working perfectly. So to run the application, we can say uvi corn, okay, main dot app hyphen hyphen reload. Okay. So as I said earlier, this uvi corn is used to run the first API application that we have installed here in this file. Okay, and this main means this particular main.py file, and this app means that we are initializing this particular application that we have created inside this main.py. Okay, and this reload means that whenever we make any change in this directory, this fast application will get reloaded automatically. Okay, so this is basically a watch, you can say. So let's press enter, and it has started our fast API application. So let's copy this URL and open this in the browser. Okay, perfect. So this is working perfectly fine. Okay, so now let's say configure our Celery into this application. Okay, so for this I'm just going to create a folder called core. Okay, and in the core folder I'm just going to create a file called config.py. Oh, sorry, py. I'm going to create another folder. I will say it's Celery underscore util. dot py, and one more file that will be celery underscore config dot py. Okay. So next step should be configuring the celery into the fast API. Okay. So for that, I'm just going to create a folder called core. Okay. So before that, since we are going to use SQS, we need to provide the AWS keys like AWS access key and secret access key, right? So for that, we need a way to read the environment variable. Okay. So for that, I'm going to install another package that is called python.env. Okay. So python.env, this particular package. So I'm just going to put that into the requirements.txt. Okay. And latest version is 1.0.0. Oh, sorry. What happened? Okay. So let me put it here, and let me just run the install. Okay. So it's installed now. Uh, okay. So now let's continue the configuration. So in this one, I'm just going to create a file called config dot py. So this is not for the celery. This is basically for the application related configuration. I prefer to keep that in a separate file, right? And since we are using the fast API 0.103.10, okay, let's check what is the latest version of the fast API. Fast API py. Okay. So this is the latest version, and this uses, I guess, Pydantic 2.0. So in Pydantic 2. Version, if we need to install another package, it's called Pydantic setting. Pydantic settings. Basically, if you want to override the configuration, so this library we need. So for that, I'm just going to put that in also in the requirements.txt file, and I'm just going to install this as well. Okay. So this is installed now. Perfect. So now we can continue with our configuration. Okay. Perfect. Nice. So for this, I will create a class and I will call it settings. Okay. And this settings will extend a class that will be imported from the pydantic setting. So from pydantic settings import base setting. So this will extend this base setting class. Okay. Here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a couple of things like uh, I am going to import the .env. So from .env library .env imports load.env, right? So here I'm just going to call load.env, load the env environment variable from .env file. Okay, so this will load the .env file whenever we call the configuration. Okay, and what else? Here you can do a couple of more things. Let's say if you want to set the app name, you can set the whatever name you want. You can set the app version, and you can set the debug false. Maybe you can get this debug variable from the env. So for that you need to import the another Python library called OS. So you can set here os.env debug. By default this will be false. So here in the we need to create another file called a .env, and here you can say true in if you are working in a local, but if you are working in your deploying this project in your live environment, you might make want to make it false. Okay. So that's the basic setting. I'm just going to create another method called let's say def and get settings. Okay, not get db. Sorry about this. Get settings, and this get settings will return settings. Okay, you can override this setting by creating another class and by getting the environment variable. Let's say app env, and if you set it to development, then here you can create another class and return a appropriate version of the settings that you want to return for a different environment. So that's up to you. I'm not going to do that. and I'm going to remove this variable as well. So our setting is ready. So for the Celery integration, I'm going to create another folder, and this will be called Celery. Okay, not inside the core, outside this core, and in the main folder. So here I'm going to create two files. One will be config.py and one will be utils.py. Okay, so so let's start configuring these files. Okay, so for in the config one, I need couple of imports. One could be, let's say, uh, okay, from Combo. Basically, this comes with your Celery. So Combo is a library that is installed with your Celery package. So this will be we will use for configuring the queue. Okay, so we are going to import the queue. Okay, and we are going to also import the settings, application settings. Okay, so from we are going to say core dot config import get settings. I'm going to say this app settings. Okay, and here I'm going to initialize this settings equals to app settings. So this means when we are calling this app settings, this particular class is instantiated. That means our environment variable is loaded now. Okay, so this is oh, I'm doing this in a wrong file. So this should be in the config one. Okay, in the config one, since we are uh, creating the configuration, so it should be in the config one. And here I'm just going to again create a class, and I will call it base settings. So this base settings class is basically for the Celery configuration. So let's write it. Celery configuration. Okay, here. And what I'm going to configure it, broker URL, basically broker underscore URL. So broker URL, you can set it in your setting file, but since I'm creating a different configuration file, so I'm just going to say SQS colon slash slash. There are multiple ways you can set the broker URL, but I prefer to do this way. I don't want to provide the access key and secret access key in the URL itself. I want to provide that via a environment variable. Okay. So another is like result backend. So I'm not going to use any result backend as of now. That is also a default behavior. If you want me, just comment it out. I will create a separate video how we can configure the result backend. Okay. And also I'm going to say broker. Sorry about my typings. Broker transport. ANSPORT. Broker transport. I'm going to say SQS since I'm going to use the SQS. Okay. We can also configure a default queue. So task default queue. Uh, I'm just going to say default. Okay, so this will be our default queue. Now, what are the queues that we want to use in this application, right? So to configure that, maybe you are having a multiple task. One is to send the email. One is to send the email related to the welcome message. One is to send the email related to the account verification. So for that, you might want to keep a separate queue, right? So you can configure it here by saying task queue, and this will accept queue class that we have imported here. So you can say queue, and queue basically if you don't provide routing key and all, it will be by default a default one. So I'm just going to provide the queue name. So I'm just going to say, let's say, describely q1. Okay, I'm just going to define it two queue classes here. Describely q2. You can define many queue as you want. Okay, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to define broker transport option. So here I'm going to configure the region where I want to use the SQS. So broker and basically transport option. Okay, here region I'm for now I'm just going to leave it US East one, but if I check here I'm going to use the AP South one actually. So AP South one. Okay, so you can get it from the environment variable if you want, but I'm just going to leave it hard coded. So it's up to you. And you can define the worker concurrency here also. Worker concurrency. So I'm just going to have it one. You can define as many as you want. If you don't define, based on your processor in your machine, it automatically picks. Let's say you are having a quad core, so that means it will automatically pick four concurrent requests at the same time. But you can define it here also. So I'm just going to leave it one. And there is another variable called include. So what task you want to include, right? So this will actually accept the path where your task is defined. Okay, so this should be a list or whatever you want to define. So list could be, I'm just going to create here a folder called task, not here, uh, task tasks task here. Okay, and I'm going to create a file uh, in this folder. This will be called let's say dummy task.py. Okay, and another file dummy job.py. Okay, so in this one you can define basically the path of the folder, or you can define the file as well. So if I define, let's say, task only, right, that means all these two files, whatever task these two files contain, will be included in the celery process. But if you want to define a particular file only, then you can just put a dot, and then you can define like dummy jobs, dummy task, whatever you want. So I'm just going to leave it like this. Okay, so this is basically the configuration that we need for the celery to work. Okay, so now let's go to the utils. Okay, so here we are going to create the celery uh, celery instance. Okay, and then we will be calling this instance. So here also I'm just going to import couple of things from the celery. So one is like celery and import and current app, as I will say it, current celery app. Okay, and in the configuration also I'm just going to define a method, def get settings, because we need the settings when we initialize our application, celery application, right? So for that, let me go to this utils. Okay, we have created our app. I will define a method create celery. Okay, in this method I will create the celery app, and this will be create celery app. And I'm just going to provide the settings also. So celery app dot, you can call config from object. Okay, config from automatically picks, no, this is not the correct. So we can import that settings also from celery dot config import get settings as celery settings. I think I need to rename this one, otherwise it's going to conflict with the official package. So I will rename this celery app. Okay, so now we can say celery app. Perfect, now it's fine. So you can say settings here, and this will be salary settings. So I will just provide the settings, and if you want to provide, you can provide a namespace also, salary. Now this is basically configured, but I'm just going to provide the content, what kind of content we are going to use in this queue also. So that will be salary app, salary dot update, and in this update I'm just going to provide accept content. This will be JSON, and also I'm just going to provide a pickle, right? There are a couple of more configurations. You can configure like result serializer if you want to use the result. So you can do this like this one, update task serializer actually. This is pickle. You can also configure result serializer, that is also a pickle. Couple of more configuration you can do. Whatever you can just have your office look at the official documentation of the salary, and you will find it there. Okay. One more thing that is important, like I'm just going to define the worker prefetch multiplier. Okay. So that is salary update. So this basically this tells a salary to pick one message at a time. Okay. And one more thing, let's say whenever your application is in starting, there is something that that needs some time to get started. Let's say you are connecting to a database or something, then you can just tell the salary to retry whenever a connection fails, right? So if you want to do that, you can just say that salary app dot update, and this will be called like broker connection retry, broker connection, and retry, sorry, retry, and you can say it to true, retry on startup. You can just copy any of them, and or you can just go here and type salary configuration options, and you can find lots of configuration options that you can configure here. Okay. So you can, what based on your requirement, you can just copy it from here and just put it here. That will work. Also you can put some of the configuration here if you want. So both way it will work, either you can update it or you can configure it from here. Okay. So this is fine. Now I think we have configured, we have also returned our salary application. Perfect. So now let's call that in our uh, main.py. Okay. So to do that, what we need to do, uh, we need to import the salary, create salary that we have created. So from let's say salary underscore app dot utils import create salary. Okay. I think method name is create salary itself. Let's confirm it. Yeah, create salary. So this method. Okay. And we can say app dot salary app equals to we can call the method create salary. Okay. So this means whenever our application is starting, the salary application salary app is integrated and working with our first API application. And we can also create a variable here, salary equals to create, or we can say app dot create create salary, or not create salary, sorry, basically salary application. So why we need this variable? Whenever we want to run the salary in a separate thread or in a separate process, let's say you want to have if you're running your application in a Docker, so you need a container to run the fast API to serve the API, but you need another container at the same time to run your background task. Okay, so for that we need the Celery. Okay, we cannot run the Celery at this moment. We need couple of more things. One is, since we have configured it here, that we are going to use the SQS, right? So to connect to the AWS SQS, we need the AWS credentials. Okay, so let's copy the AWS credential in our environment variable. So by default, if you go to the Celery and you can search here Celery and SQS. Okay, this will give you a link, and here you can see this. It expect the key that is known as the AWS access key and AWS secret key, right? So AWS access key ID and AWS secret key ID, we can put that into the environment variable. Then we can use the SQS like this. So we need these two keys. Okay. So let me put that into the env. So we can say like AWS key, AWS config. Okay. So this one here and this one here. We copy the values. Okay. This is done now. So let's try to run the Celery now and see if it's working. Okay, so to run the Celery, let's open the terminal and we can type uh, Celery, and then we can type hyphen a main dot Celery. If you remember, when we were running the fast API application, we said main colon app, but here we will say main dot Celery. That means we are saying this one. Okay, and then worker. If you want to put the log label, you can put the hyphen log label equals to whatever you want to put, info or whatever you want to define. You can also define the hyphen queues here. You can also define the concurrency here also. So this, if you define the concurrency here or queues here, this will override the default configuration that we have created in the config.py. Okay, so I'm not going to do this. Just for your info, I have told you it. So let's run this. It says Celery option command arc. What is wrong? Did I miss anything? Says hyphen app. Oh, it says function object has no attribute, config from object. Okay, we might have basically made some mistakes. So let me just go to this config. Oh, we have said actually create Celery, not it should be Celery app, and then it should be config from objects. Okay, let's check if this is the method actually. This is config from object Celery config from object. You can search it here and probably you will have, yeah, this is the method basically. So you can say, you can see here app.config from object. Okay, so basically your Celery application and then config from object. So this should be fine now. Save it and let's go to the terminal again. Okay, so let's run Celery no attribute update. Where? Okay, why this is saying that? Oh, sorry, it should be .conf dot update. So we are updating the config, so it should be conf dot update. Sorry about that. Conf dot update. Okay, so let's try now. Hopefully this time it will work. Yeah, so your salary is started, but this is saying the curl client requires the PyCurl library. So I'm just going to solve this issue in my local. Figured it out why it was not working. Basically, this issue comes sometimes in macOS. So to fix this one, you can run this command pip uninstall PyCurl. Although it was installed correctly, but you need to whenever you are installing, you need to tell that to use the SSL library. Okay, for that you can just uninstall it and install it with this command. Okay, so you can say pycurl underscore ssl library, and then you can tell open ssl, then the path of the library, and then basically flag ldf ld flag and then cpp flags. Okay, you can provide the path like this here, and then you can say pip install no cache dir pycurl, and once you install the pycurl again, this should work. So you can again run the command called this one, salary hyphen a main dot salary worker log info equals to info. So now this, we don't see that error. That means it is correctly working and it's connected to SQS. And if it's working correctly, we should see actually the queue is already created in the SQS. So if I go to this queue, okay, perfect. You can see this got created, and it's created 11:23, right? And you can say 11:24 is right now in my local time zone. So that means this is created just now. So that means we can say our SQS and salary is perfectly and correctly integrated with our first app application. Okay, so let's create the task. So I'm just going to create one task in this one and one task in this one, and this will just print whatever argument we receive, whatever message we receive from the queue, right? It's not going to do anything, it's a dummy task. So I'm just going to import couple of things here. One is like create salary application that we have created. So I'm just going to say uh, salary app dot utils and import create salary. Okay, and I'm also going to import our settings because we need the environment variable uh, here also, because this will be running in a separate thread. So we need to initialize our settings so that our environment variable is loaded. So for that we can say core dot config import get settings. Okay, so I'm just going to initialize the settings, get settings, and now to create the task, I'm just going to define a method called def dummy. I will say dummy job. Okay, and this one will basically receive some uh, argument from, argument means like message whatever is coming in the queue. So keywords, and I'm just going to print that, print dummy job, and this dummy job will print what it will print, it will print whatever keywords that we are getting. Okay, and how the salary will recognize this is a salary task, for that we need to define uh, basically we need to tell the salary. So for that we need to initialize the salary application, create salary, and then we will see salary and dot task. Okay, and then we can define the name and all. So this is basically dummy job, and bind should be true. Acknowledge, basically we can define the acknowledge late true, that means ack late. If you define the acknowledge late true like this, that means like whenever your job is successfully processed or returned true, then the salary will understand that this task is successful, and it will delete the message from the SQS. And if you don't define this, by default it's false. That means whenever a message is read from the SQS, it will be deleted from there. Okay, so it's depend upon your requirement. I'm just going to leave it. You can define max try 3, default retry delay you can define 10 seconds, or you can leave it. Okay, there are a couple of more things that you can define here, like a task reject on worker loss. So this is another kind of error. Sometimes we see uh, when the salary is running. So this could be due to the lack of memory. Let's say your application is requiring lots of memory, but your maybe container or wherever you are running doesn't have that enough space, right? So in that case, this will fail. So if you want to delete the message whenever there is a failure, you can just put it true, else you can put it false. By default, this is true, right? I'm just going to leave it. One is also called auto retry for. So you can put it exception. That means any exception occurs, this will be automatically retried. But if you want to retry for a specific kind of exceptions only, you can put those type of exceptions, and you can throw those type of exceptions in the uh, logic of this particular job. So I'm just going to leave it. What else? You can define the queue also here. What queue that this particular task will be using. So you can define the queue equals to, and here I'm just going to use the queue name that I have defined here. So like I said, you can create an environment variable for this queue in the settings, and then you can use the same settings here. I'm just going to hard code it here. So this particular task will work for this queue. Okay, and I think that's it. For the more info, I will suggest you to go through the salary official documentation. You will find the information there. Okay, and for the other task, I'm just going to copy it, just name it to dummy task here, and I will be using this to second queue, and I will say dummy task. Okay, so dummy task. So this means whenever we push a message into the queue, we should see some log in the salary that will say dummy job, and whenever we push some message into the queue too, we will see dummy task, not the job. Or we can say here also queue name, from where this message is coming from. We can just copy paste it here for our identification purpose. Okay, so this is done now. And for this, to push a message into the queue, we need to create a way how we can push the message into the queue. So now we need to push the message into the SQS, right? So to push the message into the SQS, we need to uh, actually I'm going to define two methods. Okay, and not methods, basically two routes, and using those routes I'm going to push the message into the queue. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to define like queue job. Okay, so here I'm not going to use this one. Okay, so here I'll get a job name in this route, and this whatever I receive here, let's say I will call it query. This that was the auto suggestion. I'm not going to use that, and whatever I get in this query, that I am going to push that. Okay, so for that I need to import the task that we have created. Okay, so to import the task, we can say from, and where the task exists here, task dot dummy job import dummy job. Okay, so this is the dummy job that we have created, and let's define the route name also. So I will say app dot get dummy job, and this dummy job will have this query. Okay, so this dummy job will have the query, and whatever we get in this query, we'll get that query here, and I'm just going to push that. So for that, keyword rgs, I'm just going to create a dictionary, and in this dictionary I'm just going to define the query, and this will be the query. Okay, so this I'm just going to, this will be basically the payload of our queue, and this I will be pushing into the queue. So for that, uh, method that we have imported here, so that is the dummy job. So we can say like dummy job dot, and then we need to say apply async, and then we can pass keywords equal to keywords. Also we can define the queue here, queue equals to in which queue we are going to push, right? That is also required, so that where we are going to push, this is the queue name. Okay, so this is the queue name. Since we have created two separate queues, so it's better we define. If there was a single queue, then if you don't define the queue, it is going to go into the default one, right? So you can define the queue like this here, and keywords. So this is ready now. Let's create another method that is for our task. So dummy task. Okay, and here also this will be dummy task. Okay, and this query equal to query, and again we need to import from task dot dummy task, import dummy task. So this will be dummy task, and this is going to go into the second queue, right? So this is ready now, and let's start our fast API. So we can say uv icon main colon app hyphen hyphen reload. So this is started now. So let's go to the browser, and you can see the currently there is nothing in the queue. Okay, let me close these tabs. Not required now. So this is done now. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if you know, you can just go here like docs. Okay, when you go to the docs, you will see the all the API here, and you can directly type in the browser. But I'm just going to do it from here because it's edgy for me. Whatever I type here, I can just execute, and we can see. So for the dummy job, I'm just going to put job one and just execute. Okay, so this has thrown some error. Let's see. Function object has no attribute. Apply async. Why this is saying? This is task actually. Did we not define? What did we miss? Uh, I think this is correct. Why this is saying? Oh, this because of this. Basically, this should be add salary. Okay. So sorry about this. Is silly mistakes that I do a lot. I guess now it will be fine. Okay, so let's see if our application is running. I think it's running. I don't see the log. I think I have closed it. Let me see. Yeah, it's running, but where can I see the logs? Okay, so terminal. Oh, let me delete this. Here our application is running. I have created so many JDs. Let me close them. This is also not running. This is not running. This is not running. This is not running. This is actually Celery is running here, so I'm just going to stop this, because if it's running we push the message instantly, this is going to read, and we won't be able to see the message into the queue. Okay, so let's retry. So retry and job 001 execute. So we don't see any return because we haven't returned anything here, and hopefully this has pushed the message into the queue. So let me just see. Did we not return anything? We did not return anything. So if I go to the SQS, if I refresh, we see one message here, right? So let's put couple of messages. uh, so we have done one, we are going to do two, we are going to do three, we are going to do four, we are going to do five. Okay, so this is done. Now let's push the message into the second one, and that is our task one. So here also I'm going to say task one, internal server error. Did we not change this celery task? Oh, this is not saved. Oh, shit. Okay, so one, two, three, four, and five. So we should see the five messages in both the queues. So it's here. And now let's start the celery, and let's see the message is being consumed. Okay, so to do this we can run this once. You can see task 3, task 2, task 3 job. So this is running asynchronously, that means there is no sequence. Okay, and if we open another terminal, if we open another terminal and we run the our UV icon application, that means our fast API application. So this is now our application is running. I'm just going to put some space here, and if you run these two process in a separate a container or separate EC2 instance, as soon as you push the message, so let me refresh the page. I'm just going to push the job one, right? And I'm going to say hello world, hello world. So as soon as I push the message, I should see the output here. So execute, and you see that this has received. I don't know what it's doing. Message is gone. Okay, so this has successfully processed. I think this was taking some time during, because it needs to make the connection to the SQS, and after that it needs to delete the data from there. So this is that's why it took little time, but you can see the instant output here. That means our Celery integration and SQS integration with the first API is perfectly working. So thank you so much, and I'm just going to put this code in a GitHub, and I will also provide the link in the description. Okay, so if you need, you can have a look at the code. Thank you so much for uh, watching, and if you haven't subscribed this channel yet, please do subscribe. It helps me a lot. Thank you so much.